And so for those of you who don't see the inner workings of the congregation, that's a great example of how it takes many hands to do the work that we do. And so when we think about our living tradition, which is our service, is that Unitarian Universalism is not stuck in one framework. We didn't say, we believe this thing and we're going to believe it for the rest of our lives. And Unitarians are good at causing trouble. We like to cause good trouble. We like to ask questions, stir the pot a little bit. I truly believe that I was admitted into the Methodist seminary that I attended because they were really looking forward to us offering some challenging questions in their theology classes. We had 5 of us in that seminary. So Unitarianism began in controversy and never really left that position behind. It was firmly rooted in Christianity. Unitarians were Christians that did not affirm the Holy Trinity of God. They held the belief in the singularity or unity of God. Rational religion was the hallmark of Unitarians, the science of biblical criticism, and each person's personal relationship to God and the humanity of Jesus. Ralph Waldo Emerson once said that Unitarians were the frozen chosen. Get out of your pews, go out into the woods, and go experience things. And he also questioned whether, why did we just have to sit with Christianity? What about direct experience and nature? What about Hinduism and Buddhism? And you know what that thing is? Once you open a door, it keeps opening, and we keep asking questions. Unitarianism has rich roots. It harkens back to Michael Servetus, the first recorded Unitarian martyr. Yes, we had a martyr. He was burned at the stake as an anti-Trinitarian heretic in 1558 by Calvin. Calvin did not want to let a radical live that so clearly flouted a Christian orthodoxy. And we also had a Unitarian king, kind of like Camelot. John Sigismund was the king of Transylvania, the first and only Unitarian king in history. He was deeply interested in pacifying conflict in his diversely religious kingdom. He fostered a broad policy of tolerance and open discussion, making Transylvania, for that brief window in time, like Camelot. It was a free religious exercise. And he was influenced by Michael Servetus and was an advocate for the freedom of individual belief in 1561. So Unitarian Universalism is a liberal religion that is encompassed by many faith traditions. I can look out into the pews here, and if I talk to people online, many of you would have different views and different ideas about how we can be the best people that we can be, how we should vote, how we should conduct ourselves. And the thing is that our tradition, if you look on the front of our hymnal, it's called a living tradition because things keep changing. And funny that, the world keeps changing. And so for us to be relevant and I think worthy of having these doors open, we change with it. And we keep trying to embrace love, trying to embrace transformation as core identities of who we are and who we want to be. And so when I thought about being a priest when I was little, that's what I knew. I was an Episcopalian. I saw my dad in the pulpit. Luckily, I got to see my stepmom as a priest, and I said, girls are ministers, I can be a minister too. And then, my neighbor, my best friend, introduced me to her UU congregation, and they were wearing all these tie-dye shirts and had this weird flaming chalice. And as I began to ask questions in my early 20s, funny that, I went to Jacksonville for my first job in Jacksonville, Florida, went to the Episcopal Church, and did what every good Southern girl does, and was going to find me some buddies, and this is what my Nana told me I should do to meet friends. And And I walked out. I felt very rude, but the words did not speak to me. So the very next Sunday, I went to the Unitarian Church in Jacksonville, Florida, and became a UU ever since. And it's because I was allowed to question. I wasn't given beliefs that should be mine. And what I really love about Unitarian Universalism and what I really love about serving this congregation is that I can change too. I don't have to check my integrity at the door when I come up here and tell you what I believe. And those beliefs can change. And it's not saying that if you have a set belief system that you're checking your integrity at the door. But for me, my beliefs don't fit into one certain tradition. And so this was the best home for me. And what I think for being a living tradition is to think about, how does our tradition change? We look back to Universalist. Universalism emerged as a Christian denomination with a central belief in universal salvation, that all people would be reconciled to God. And people held this belief for thousands of years. And because of this doctrine, it became very popular in the United States, and the Universalist Church of America was formed in 1793. They supported education, non-sectarian schools, and they also believed in the separation of church and state, prison reform, getting rid of capital punishment, the abolition of slavery, and women's rights. In 1863, Universalists were the first to have a woman as a minister. As you can see, civil disobedience and anti-authoritarianism is deeply embedded in our tradition. There is a reason that we value everyone's right to vote, everyone's right to come up here and share their joy or concern. And that I, as a minister, if Ken's giving a sermon, I'm not going to ask Ken to show me his sermon ahead of time. He can get up here as long as he represents, our loving place, and or anyone else for that matter. And so, what does that mean for who we are in this community? I know that we will have our Pride table. We're going to have a table at Juneteenth. But what is it that lies before us? In this supposedly post-pandemic world, what is our place in this changing times? Right now, on a national level, we're looking at our principles and our sources and how we choose to represent our beliefs. This summer, the UUA will be putting on the ballot the division, I wish I'd put my notes. It's a thing. This is what happens when you go extemporaneous. Anyway, what's going on right now is the UUA has a committee that put forth a proposal for changing our principles and our purposes. We've been studying that here in the congregation. We have 4 delegates that will be reviewing those possible changes. The good news is that it's also really hard to make changes in our bylaws and our things like that. And it takes a lot of people voting. I was talking to a member the other day who had been to General Assembly, and it's a really like you'll see if you stay for our annual meeting. There's a chance for people to talk, ask questions, and then you vote. And change is one of life's constants. So right now, the revision is to Article 2, so I did remember. Our 7 principles form the core of our collective covenant, and a lot of people talked about the 1st and 7th principle. We live by inherent worth and our profound interconnectedness. Does anybody know the 3rd principle? What about the 6th? Can you name all 6 sources? Me neither. And I've been a UU for a long time, and I'm a minister. And you may also be familiar that we were going to add an 8th principle, which is about dismantling white supremacy and creating accountability. So a lot of UU congregations voted to add the 8th principle. So we have all these different things in the water: change, a chance to vote. And the joy for me is that every voice matters. And that we have a chance to participate in what we believe. So part of the practice of doing that is that there'll be a vote this summer at General Assembly to look at things. It will take a majority of votes for it to even go forward for these things to change. And then it would be voted on in 2024, and it would need a 2/3 majority to pass. So we don't know what will happen. I know our delegates have been looking at the materials, and we'll be looking at the materials, and there'll be amendments and changes, just like we have made amendments to our bylaws. When we were remote, we had to change our bylaws so that we could have a remote annual meeting. And what might we change it in the future? I don't know. Maybe we'll think about other things. But the thing is, you have the power to determine that, how we govern ourselves, what matters, who runs our board. I was called here by a vote. I didn't get sent here by the Unitarian Universalist bishop. There is no bishop. So what I mean to say to you, that when we have children that come of age, when we have children that we have a baby dedication for, is that we hold each other in this space that we can learn and grow. That we have the right to change. We have the right to also stand in our beliefs. Maybe we feel very strongly about something now. I know I feel strongly about standing up for people's rights. I know I feel strongly and afraid for all the anti-trans legislation that is going forward, all the ways in which voters are being disenfranchised, the ways in which education is being coerced by the religious right, the very, very, very religious right. Even some of the religious rights kind of going, what are you doing? And so more now than ever, voices like ours can make a difference. Voices like ours can say, hey, people have a right to read. People have a right to be taught Black history, LGBTQ history. Our children have a right to identify their own gender and to express themselves and say gay. Can you say gay? Say gay. Gay. That drives me nuts that we can't, that Florida has a don't say gay law. So there's so much to get riled up about, but there's also so much to be excited about, that we can make a change. And so when I say ours is a living tradition, it's true. And so I hope that for those of you that are curious, that are visitors or friends of the congregation, you're welcome to stay for our annual meeting. For members, we really, really ask you to stay if you can. We need 54 people. So the Spirit says, vote. You got and just thank you for being courageous in all the ways. I can look across this room and everybody is courageous in their world and finding your own path. That takes something to question, to step outside of maybe what you were taught and to claim your truth. And I just want to give you a thumbs up and a like on that post. Just kidding. No, I think it's important that we recognize that taking a stand away from the norm is difficult. And as a congregation, sometimes we get a little heat, we get a little heat for our signs or for claiming that Black Lives Matter. But you know what? Good. I think it's time for us to take a little heat and to give it back, because this is a time for us to shine and to show our love and to be a part of a changing world, because we're relevant and we're visible and we can make a difference. Amen.